On today's Locked on Thunder podcast, we have clarity on what Chet Holmgren is going through, and the Thunder got a scrappy win over the LA Clippers.
You are Locked on Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked on Thunder podcast, on the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. If you're on Blue Sky, you can just look up Rylan Styles, RYLANSTILES, and I'm on there now as well. But today's show, we're diving into Chet Holmgren's injury, which since our last pod has been found out, including somewhat of a timeline, plus the Clippers game in which the Thunder pulled out a gritty, gutty, competitive, scrappy win over LA. But today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Go there right now to America's biggest sports book. It's a $5 bet for new customers, and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. So first, the Chet Holmgren news, which broke overnight. So I was anticipating this news kind of in the morning. Therefore, I went ahead and recorded last night's show. It actually broke overnight. But here's the deal. Chet Holmgren does have a fractured hip. You can read the specifics in their press release, which is on all over Thunder on SI, all over my social media accounts. So the injury is summed up as a right iliac wing fracture. It is expected that Chet Holmgren will return during the 24-25 NBA season. Here's the bit deal, because this is the part of the press release that I think can get a little bit misconstrued. I think can get a little bit of false sense of known, right? A false timeline. The actual press release verbatim says an update on his return to play protocol will be provided in 8 to 10 weeks. And so I think that naturally when you just are skimming through and trying to ingest the information as fast as possible when it's regarding an injury, you go to that 8 to 10 week period and think, well, he's back in late January, or he's back in whatever this 8 to 10 week phrase is. I want to be clear that the press release is only promising that at that time we will know more about his return to play protocol. So this is an injury that I think you should always be conservative in, where I would say anything before March is a huge win. Because let's say he's 8 to 10 weeks, and I'm not a doctor. I didn't sleep at a Best Western. I don't know anything in this regard, but I have to imagine that whenever you fracture your hip, you're not going to be able to do a ton of basketball activities. And so you'll have this space of time here, whether it's 8 to 10 weeks, however it falls, where you're not doing anything. And you can't go from nothing to NBA basketball. You saw even Kenrich, he returned tonight against the Clippers. He had to go down and practice with the Blue during their training camp practices, which are much more physical and intense than a Thunder off-day practice in the midst of a season. So the return to play protocol part is big. I would not worry or fret if you don't see Chet at the end of January. But the biggest news from this is that you have seen the Thunder escape the worst possible outcome. The worst possible outcome was that he was done for the season. And he's not. They expect him to return at some point this year. I also want to say that, these injuries are different for everybody. Everybody has a different body. There's always things that can go extremely right, things that can go extremely wrong. But what I think helps the Thunder in this regard is you've got that equity and trust built up from Chet of as the team, he's going to work hard and put the work in and attack the rehab just as well as he did the first time. And from Chet's perspective, that the team is going to put you in the best possible scenario. They rehabbed another freak injury that you rarely see. They rehabbed another one of those and got you to the point where you played all 82 games last year. So the trust is huge. You see what happens when that trust is broken in other places. It's huge that it is going to be existing in Oklahoma City. And the Thunder are going to perfectly manage this, and they should be, in my opinion, conservative with this whole situation, just based upon who this is. This is one of your best players. This is what this kind of whole thing is built around. So I would say anything before March is a massive win, and the biggest win is it's not for the season. And there's never a good time to get hurt. But the fact that an All-Star break return is even in question, where you have the entire post-All-Star break to ramp up leading into the playoffs, is huge. Because you don't want to go into the playoffs cold. Like, even if you return to the playoffs, it's all great, but you want to have some games to get your legs under you, get kind of back in the routine. And so I think that it's big that Chet can come back. The 8 to 10 weeks return to protocol, and then however long you need to ramp up from there, and then he's back on the floor. Now, the Thunder surviving this stretch, as they did tonight, is going to have to look much of the same like it did tonight, where it's scrappy, and it's flooding to the paint, and it's everybody locking in defensively to the best of their ability and playing with all-out hustle, which, if there's ever a team who you want to bank on doing that, it's this Oklahoma City Thunder team. And once they get Hartenstein back, whether that's a week from now or 3 weeks from now, whatever it is, when they get Hartenstein back, things get a lot simpler. Like, a lot simpler, especially now that you at least have the option to go to Kenrich Williams off the bench, who, despite playing 5 minutes, played really well in this game for OKC. We'll talk about this game for OKC against the Clippers coming up. How did they pull this game out? SGA had a career night and a career high. We'll talk about it all coming up on today's show. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Mint Mobile. Check out Mint Mobile today, because you can win big with wireless Mint Mobile. Because with big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and the first month's bill, the price you thought you were going to pay magically skyrockets. But with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. With Mint Mobile, when they say $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected averages and uppages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with a premium wireless plan starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data, unlock talk and text delivered to the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and bring your phone number along with you for all your existing contacts. So ditch your overpriced wireless company and choose Mint Mobile's deal to get 3 months of premium wireless services for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer, you and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Go there right now. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower after 40 gigabytes of unlimited usage. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. You can check out Locked On NBA for Locked On NBA game nights, recapping all of the night's association action. I'll be on there on Saturdays, recapping the Saturday slate of game for Sunday morning. And, of course, check out Locked On Sooners, Locked On Poke, see if they can do anything to salvage their season. And thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen, you everydayers. We've talked Chet's injury. Now let's talk Thunder bouncing back with a huge win on the second night of a back-to-back. They beat the Clippers 134-128 in a game in which they once had a 20-point lead. The Clippers only led by 4, 6 lead changes, 3 ties in this contest. The Clippers killed the Thunder on the glass 47-29, but Oklahoma City made up for that by producing 23 turnovers to OKC's just 11 turnovers in this contest. And it was really an impressive showing from Oklahoma City. If I told you this morning that on the second night of a back-to-back, the Clippers would come into Oklahoma City and shoot 55% from the floor, 54% from three, you would have thought that the Thunder lost that game 10 times out of 10. But the Thunder respond with 51% from the floor, 39% from three, and 95% at the charity stripe, whereas the Clippers only made 69% of their free throws. The Thunder won points in the paint, 54-46. They lost second chance points, only 21 to 17, though. And then Thunder won fast break points by 6, 16-10. I thought that this was a game as just an overarching point where you once again saw it on display, what you saw a year ago. You know, it really hurt the Pelicans in the playoffs. And not to say that the Pelicans would have won that series by any stretch, but they wouldn't have gotten swept had they not tried to fight fire with fire. Like you are not going to play better small ball basketball than the Thunder. Number one, their small ball players are just more talented than you. And number two, their small ball players have done it more than you. They're more experienced than you, and they know how to execute it better than you do. So you cannot fight small ball with small ball. And that's what Willie Green fell in love with in the playoffs. That's what Ty Lue fell in love with whenever the Thunder extended this lead to 20. But once he went back to Zubac, you saw the clean entry passes, and you saw him really feast down low. Now, look, when you take his box score and just look at it on the surface, it's not pretty at all. Like, he's a -9. He did have 22 and 14, but he was still losing his minutes. He did shoot 75% from the floor with no three-pointers. But when you look specifically at the second half, Zubac was a +5, and that's where he scored 18 of his points. And he was really helping this team turn the tide, where he's a +6 in the third quarter for like the final 7 minutes of that frame, which is where the Clippers narrowed the gap. And it was largely because of Zubac and because the Thunder just had to get worn down by facing off with a big like him. The good news for the Thunder is, even if coaches want to stay in love with the big, you look at the upcoming schedule. New Orleans can only offer you Yves Missi, who's a good player, and he had a double-double today. I think of another double-double Wednesday. He's a good player. But past him, it's Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who is a small ball center, and you know very well, and Daniel Tice. Like, so it's not as though the Pelicans really have any choice. And then on Friday, you have Nurkic, who is going to have a baller night, but nobody really else. Now, the issue would come on Sunday against Dallas, if they can get healthy, if they can have Derek Lively, they'd be able to go to Gafford and Lively consistently, and that game could be a little messy. That game could be a bit harder to patchwork. But I think teams need to stop trying to meet the Thunder where they're at, because at that point, you're letting the Thunder dictate the terms of the game, and when you do, they're just simply more talented than you. They really are. But overall, I thought the grit in this game was massive. The energy in this game was what kept them really in control. You know, they had the early back and forth lead changes. You know, there were 6 of them total. But once they wrestled away that lead in the middle of the second quarter and they grew it to 20, they never give it back. Now, if they get dicey, it got down to like 3 points at the end. But the Thunder were able to still manage the game very, very, very well. And I think that that's in large part because of Mark. Like the trust that you have in Mark to consistently flip through the Rolodex and see what's going to work. For example, some things aren't going to work. Dillon Jones is not working right now. And that's not an indictment on Dillon Jones. Like, we all knew that the jump from mid-major to the NBA was massive. We are playing much better talent at a much quicker pace. But specifically, the jump from you're the offensive engine at Weber State, now you've got 5 minutes to go be impactful. Go do it. That's hard to do. Because like at Weber State, you could use your first 5 minutes of the game to get acclimated, get your legs under you, see how the game's flowing. You've got to be ready to be a positive contributor from the moment you step on the hardwood. And this is something that Cam Woods harped on with developing Ousmane Dieng, of, you know, you're trying to teach them how to be effective in these bursts, in these spurts. And that's why, despite Oos starting for the Blue, which he doesn't start for the Thunder, even whenever he was starting, he would only play about 5-6 minutes at a time, because you're trying to condition him to play and be ready to play and impactful to play in these quick little bursts. And Dillon Jones has to learn that skill. And it's a foreign skill for him, on top of a foreign position. Like, I know that he's played off ball at Weber State. I know he's really proud of that. It's different to play off ball at Weber State and to play the 4/5 in the NBA. With all due respect to the mid-majors, I covered Division II basketball for a long time. I have a lot of respect for the non-blue bloods, but it's worlds different. So, for example, Dylan Jones was not ready, but it's not as though Mark is stubborn the way other coaches are. Like, he's going to flip through everybody and figure out something. And so you just have this innate trust in him to patchwork lineups and patchwork situations together that gets you to a win. And whenever you have an SGA driving the bus, it makes life a lot easier. Like, Shai was special. He was every bit an MVP in this game. 45 points from him, 9 assists, 3 rebounds, 5 steals, 2 blocks, only 1 turnover, 4 for 8 from 3, and a couple just dagger step backs that really either continued runs or, were back-breaking for the Clippers trying to build momentum. 15 for 16 at the free throw line, where he was able to nail his tech free throws. He had a transition take free throw. And then, of course, he got to the line by getting to the rim. And 61.9% from the floor. For a guy to take 21 shots and to make 61% of them, it's just special. And in this game, I thought he found the best balance so far of when to hit the right buttons. Like, of looking at this as a control room. Like, when do you take the three? When do you cue the pass and take the pass? When do you do these things on the floor? When do you take over and drive? And he's had moments, he's had flashes of putting it all together, but this was the game that was an all-around just special game. Setting his teammates up very well without being deferential. Incorporating his three-point shot without abandoning the mid-range and at the rim. And I know that, his crutch and his mindset is the right mindset of just taking what the defense gives you. But sometimes you can dictate what the defense is going to do. And I think he did a good job of doing that tonight. Was a +8 in 39 minutes and scored 45 points. And it was the recipe. Like, this was the recipe. What we talked about on yesterday's show, what it would take for this team to win without Chet and without any centers, was a more aggressive and decisive Shai, a more aggressive and decisive J-Dub, and then defensively, you have got to play on a string and just swarm the basketball in the paint. And this was how you do it. Because along with Shai's 45-point night was J-Dub's 28 points and 8 rebounds and 6 assists and 2 steals and 2 for 3 from 3 and 68% from the floor. Like, J-Dub was phenomenal in this game. And he, too, played the best he's played at deciding when to be aggressive. Versus throughout this year, the theme has kind of been he's a little too passive this year. But he was superb in this game. But while those two guys stole the box scores, rightfully so, they're going to steal the headlines, this was an all-around team win. And the recipe was simple. Let those two guys drive the bus. Defensively, you just fluster James Harden in the pick and roll. And when he tries to use the pick and roll and hit the roller in Zubac, everybody goes to him, and you live with whatever outlier shooting numbers that the rest of the crew can scrap together. And to the Clippers' credit, they tried their best. I mean, he had a 4 for 5 night from Derrick Jones Jr. You sign on the dotted line every single time. You had a 5 for 8 a night from Norman Powell, who's playing out of his mind right now. Like, you got some quality shooting nights. Amir Coffey 3 for 5. I mean, you shot 54% from 3. Like, the game plan was right. The results were almost like against you. Because again, if the game plan was to blitz James Harden, swarm Zubac, let them shoot threes, they made 54% of them. But it was just this avalanche in the third quarter from the Clippers that makes these numbers look a lot prettier, in my opinion. And that's kind of how we got here. And you look at the first half numbers. In the first half, the Clippers shot 43% from the floor and 42% from 3. And in the second half, they came alive. 66% from the floor, 68% from three, and they still struggled at the free throw line all night. But it was a win that is going to be close on the scoreboard, where it's only a 134-128 win. And the Clippers were within striking distance, had a chance at the end. They were down 3, but a game that the Thunder just felt in control of and felt determined to win. And they leaned on that defense. They leaned on that effort, because these were some tough shots that they were making, including that buzzer beater in the third quarter from Norm Powell. So while the shooting numbers are very pretty, the Thunder played pretty well defensively, despite what you might believe from the box score. And then offensively, you just got the J-Dub game, you got the Shai game, and everybody else played their role. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but your friends over at FanDuel, check out FanDuel today. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's FanDuel Sportsbook app. It gives you everything you need to bet on live NFL games all in one place. You can also bet in the middle of games, before games, after games, on the future bets. You can do it all for the latest stats and even view live play-by-play. You can do so much on the page and even place your bets at FanDuel.com. Join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. You can also wager on the NBA. The NBA Cup begins tonight. You can wager on that. Dallas going to Golden State. Klay Thompson's return. Dallas 2.5-point underdogs in Golden State. You can go check that out at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. When you look at this game, I think that one of the bigger standouts is Lu Dort. Lu Dort turned in 19 points, swiped away 2 steals, dished an assist, 2 rebounds. He went 4 for 8 from 3 and 7 for 14 from the floor. Now, he did miss a dunk, and I think that can kind of conflate, like where we're only 10 games in. And so like when you see him miss a dunk, you just think back to his history. And I'll be honest, his history is not good. Like last year was a career high, and it was a 57% career high at the rim, which was in the 22nd percentile of the NBA. There's no debating that he's been terrible at the rim, and he'd admit as such. But this season, he's at 72% at the rim entering tonight, 74th percentile. Like, he's been good at the rim this year. He's picking his spots better. He's doing it kind of as a guy getting set up versus a guy driving, which has helped him out, in my opinion. And he's kind of putting it together on the offensive end of knowing where to be and knowing how to, stay out of the way probably is not the right word, but like how to just play within the system. And a lot of it previously was kind of just somebody other than Shai had to shoot it eventually. And like, he was just kind of the guy that was there. But now that the roster is flushed out, he's played his role really well. So he's shooting a career high in threes, 45%, and a career high at the rim, 72%. And you saw that offensive facelift in this game. And then defensively, he just flustered James Harden. James Harden hated to see Lu Dort enter this game every single time. And he was a masterful job from Lu Dort of drawing fouls. He did a masterful job of that. And Lu Dort deserves a ton of credit. So does Aaron Wiggins. Aaron Wiggins was a plus 17 in this game. 10 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, always in the right spot. 2 for 4 from 3. Has some nice cuts. Like, he was just Aaron Wiggins. And this is what happens every time that he plays a large chunk. Isaiah Joe, 2 for 8 from 3, 12 points total, a block, 3 steals. This was his most active game defensively, and that's when you needed it the most. And he stepped up in a big way. And off the bench, I think this was the best game from Alex Caruso. Thunder career high, 12 points. But besides just the points, it was the quality of shot attempts continues to stay level, and he's just converting more of them. He went 2 for 5 today from 3. He shot 57% overall, and defensively he was everywhere. A block, a steal, a charge, 2 rebounds. He was just everywhere. So Caruso was awesome. Oos played solid in his limited minutes, 1 for 2 from 3, and he's just making quicker decisions overall. And then Kenrich Williams came in, and he only played 5 minutes and 39 seconds, but he was a plus 11 in that span. So he really helped the Thunder spark a run in that time. And Mark mentioned how because he gave J-Dub and Shai more minutes, those minutes kind of had to come from somewhere. So that's why he didn't go back to Kenrich, but otherwise he would have. So it sounds like Kenrich is fine and responding well after his first game. And I think that you should all go back and look at the first defensive possession from Kenrich Williams. Like, he played really good isolation defense his first possession in the game. He was moving well laterally, and he did not look like a guy playing in his first NBA game off of a knee injury. So that's encouraging for the future, because you know that, like, while tonight was fun, while you got away with starting Joe and Wiggins, and you got away with your small ball stuff, which you're going to have to get away with until Hartenstein returns, Kenrich is just the souped up version of a small ball 5. He's the OG small ball 5 for Oklahoma City, because he not only understands the position and understands positioning and understands the technical side of how to play the position, but he has a center's mentality. So I don't really care what he's listed at, which for Kenrich is 6'6". I don't really care about any of that. He has a center's mentality, and that's a big deal. And so I just think that him getting to get back in the fold and extend his role will be fantastic and do wonders for the Thunder surviving however much is left of Hartenstein's hiatus with his hand injury. So coming up, we'll recap the Pelicans game on Wednesday, but in between there on Tuesday, we'll talk about the season to this point. We'll talk about what the Thunder should look like in their rotations until Hartenstein comes back, what does change when Hartenstein comes back from injury, and kind of what they need to do to survive until then, and what they need to do once Hartenstein's back to survive until Chet. So a lot to talk about on tomorrow's show. Wednesday, we're going to recap the Pelicans game, and then that'll happen, of course, on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to preview the NBA Cup and kind of talk about this event in year number 2. So a loaded week coming to you on Locked On Thunder. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.